Good afternoon. Welcome to Washington for a special edition of Special Report. I'm Brett Baer. Coming up in a few minutes, my world-exclusive live interview with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the first since the Israeli strikes on Iran began. But first, this afternoon, a Fox News alert, the growing conflict in the Middle East, Israel launching a third day of airstrikes across Iran, Israeli officials advising Iranians to evacuate arms factories and threatening to use even greater force. Iran saying 128 people have been killed, 900 wounded so far. The Islamic Republic responding with missile attacks of its own, which have killed 13 people, wounding more than 360. Iran's foreign minister saying today his country will stop its attacks if Israel stops theirs. Let's get the latest now from Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst, live in Tel Aviv. Good afternoon, Trey.
Brett, good afternoon. Since the conflict began, Iran has launched more than 250 ballistic missiles into Israel. Overnight, 11 people were killed when some of those missiles slipped past air defense systems, slamming into residential areas. Hundreds more have been wounded. When we arrived at one impact site this morning, rescue crews were combing through the rubble of an apartment building in central Israel looking for survivors. One man in his 50s named Meir was still trapped as his son, who had been wounded in the attack, waited to learn the fate of his father. Right now, rescue workers are digging through the debris following that Iranian ballistic missile attack that targeted central Israel. They are looking for survivors who are trapped under the rubble, including Meir, that father. His son Ofek is off in the distance, still wearing his hospital gown after he was pulled from the blast site. He is hoping for a miracle today following this Iranian attack. Israel is responding to these recent attacks with more airstrikes targeting both military and energy positions inside Iran. Iranian media reports 128 people have been killed and 900 injured. We know among that list are Iranian nuclear scientists and top IRGC commanders targeted by Israel. Iran's foreign minister spoke today about the American support for Israel during the conflict. Now, in conversations with Israeli sources, they are drawing a stark contrast in what is happening here. The Israelis are going after military and nuclear sites. The Iranians are firing ballistic missiles toward Israeli civilians. Brett.
Trey Yingst in Tel Aviv. Trey, thank you. Joining us now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Mr. Prime Minister, welcome back to Special Report.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Brett.
First of all, let me start at the beginning. Why did you launch this operation now?
Because we were facing an imminent threat, a dual existential threat. One, the threat of Iran rushing to weaponize their enriched uranium to make atomic bombs with a specific and declared intent to destroy us. Second, a rush to increase their ballistic missile arsenal into the capacity that they would have 3,600 weapons a year, new weapons within 3 years, 10,000 ballistic missiles, each one weighing a ton, coming in at Mach 6 right into our cities, as you saw today. And then in 6 years, 20,000. That's no country can sustain that, and certainly not a country the size of Israel. So we had to act. It was the 12th hour. We did act to save ourselves, but also, I think, to not only protect ourselves, but protect the world from this incendiary regime. We can't have the world's most dangerous regime have the world's most dangerous weapons. We're protecting ourselves, but by doing so, we're protecting many others.
You know, I just want to press you on the intel on the nuclear part. Less than 2 months ago, the new director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, testified on Capitol Hill, saying that everything had been suspended since 2003 and had not restarted, that the nuclear program had not been restarted by the Iranians. So did something change from end of March until this week? Was the U.S. intel wrong?
The intel we got and we shared with the United States was absolutely clear. Was absolutely clear that they were working in a secret plan to weaponize the uranium. They were marching very quickly. They would achieve a test device and possibly an initial device within months and certainly less than a year. That was the intel we shared with the United States. I think we have excellent intel in Iran. I think we've proven that. And that is something that we couldn't possibly accept. Whether it would be 6 months or 12 months or 13 months is immaterial. Once they go that route, it's too late. Mm-hmm. And we will not have a second Holocaust, a nuclear Holocaust. We already had one in the previous century. The Jewish state is not going to have the Holocaust meted on the Jewish people. It's not going to happen. Never again is now, and we have to act now.
What is the goal of these strikes? You talked early in one of your speeches after the attacks began with a message directly to the Iranian people. Clearly, some of these strikes have targeted Iranian leadership, military, nuclear scientists, and other leaders. So is regime change part of the effort here?
Could certainly be the result because the Iran regime is very weak. I think it's basically left with two things. It's plans to have atomic bombs and ballistic missiles. That's basically what Iran has. They certainly don't have the people. 80% of the people will throw these theological thugs out. I mean, they murder them. They oppress them for 46 years. They've yearned for freedom. I mean, they shoot women because their hair is uncovered. They shoot students. They just suck the oxygen from this brave and gifted people, the Iranian people. And you know, the Persian people and the Jewish people have had an ancient friendship. Goes back to the times of Cyrus the Great. It could happen again. But again, the decision to act, to rise up at this time is the decision of the Iranian people. We decided to act because we saw enough uranium, enriched uranium, for 9 bombs. And all they had to do was weaponize them. We stopped that. We're attacking their nuclear sites. We attacked their chief nuclear scientists working. It's like Hitler's nuclear scientists. Would you leave them? Of course not. We attacked their top command. I can inform you, Brett, that moments ago, we also got the chief intelligence officer and his deputy in Tehran because we're now over the skies of Tehran. Our pilots, our brave pilots, are over the skies of Tehran, and we're targeting military sites, nuclear sites. That's what we're doing to take out those 2 threats. Unlike the Iranians, who your reporter said correctly, they're targeting our civilians.
Yeah.
They're bombing our civilians. So that's the difference. They're a terrorist regime. We can't have Iran have nuclear weapons. And by the way, our intel shows that they intend to give these nuclear weapons to their Houthi proxies and others. And that's nuclear terrorism on a global scale. It threatens everyone. And the last thing is they have plans to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles. Right now, 8,000 kilometers, very soon, just add a little distance, and they can reach the eastern seaboard of the United States. These people who chant death to America, try to assassinate President Trump twice, killed 241 of your Marines in Beirut, killed and injured thousands of American soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq, try to bomb a restaurant in Washington, D.C., chant death to America, burn the American flag. Do you want these people to have nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them to your cities? Of course not.
Yeah.
So we're defending ourselves, but we're also defending the world.
I want to talk about the nuclear threat, and I want to talk about President Trump. You just said Iran tried to assassinate President Trump twice. Do you have intel that the assassination attempts on President Trump were directly from Iran?
Through proxies, yes. Through their intel, yes. They want to kill him. Look, he's enemy number 1. He's a decisive leader. He never took the path that others took to try to bargain with him in a way that is weak, giving them basically a pathway to enrich uranium, which means a pathway to the bomb, padding it with billions and billions of dollars. He took up this fake agreement and basically tore it up. He killed Qasem Soleimani. He made it very clear, including now, you cannot have a nuclear weapon, which means you cannot enrich. He's been very forceful. So for them, he's enemy number 1.
Yeah.
Look, they also tried to kill me, but I'm his junior partner. They understand that President Trump is a great threat to Iran's plans to weaponize nuclear weapons and use them.
When did you tell President Trump you were going to launch these strikes?
Look, I've been in constant contact with President Trump. We've known each other for many years. And obviously, we informed our American friends and President Trump, our great friend, ahead of time. We did. He knew about it, of course.
I mean, there were reports that President Trump kind of helped you achieve your strategic surprise by publicly urging you not to attack when he already knew you had decided to do it. So you were closely coordinating with the U.S. throughout this process.
Look, we're fully coordinated, but understand that America, under President Trump, will make the decisions that are best for America. And that's the way it is. He understands that I, as the Prime Minister of Israel, the one and only Jewish state, must make the decisions that are important for the survival of my country, and he will do what is best for America. That is a relationship of mutual respect and mutual confidence.
Does Israel have the capacity to strike Iran's nuclear sites deep underground?
Well, we've certainly done quite a bit. We've destroyed the main facility in Natanz. That's the main enrichment facility. And if we need to, we'll add whatever is needed. But yes, we're committed to achieving both goals. And I'm not going to get into all of our objectives. I don't want to get into specific operational plans, but it's our existence. But not only ours, I think it's a wider battle here of civilization against barbarism, of good against bad. I mean, this regime, look at what it's done without nuclear weapons. It's just fomented evil everywhere. I mean, they've pushed international terrorism to the hilt into every part of the Middle East, in Syria, in Iraq, Lebanon, where they had Hezbollah, Hamas, where they encouraged the Houthis, the great massacre of October 7th, the Houthis. That's what they're doing when they don't have nuclear weapons, including attacking American targets. Now imagine what they'll do if they had nuclear weapons. And I'm always amazed at people who say they care about America and they don't want a war. They're right. This is a forever war that Iran is doing without nuclear weapons. And imagine what they will do if they have them. I think for the security of Israel, America, the world, we must make sure that they don't have these weapons and the means to deliver them. And they're working on both.
I just want to ask you about the nuclear sites. Fordo nuclear enrichment facility located deep inside a mountain. These are from Iranian nuclear experts. Inside this mountain near Qom. Esfahan, deeply buried facility where Iran stores its highly enriched uranium. In some ways, experts say it might even be more important than Fordo. The IAEA says it's a half-mile deep. So I guess the question is, if the goal is destroying Iran's nuclear program, how do you do so without the 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs that really only the U.S. has? Have you asked President Trump to use that 30,000-pound penetrator bomb to get to those facilities?
I'm not going to get into my discussions with the president, but understand that his decisions are his decisions. As for these targets, we've destroyed in Isfahan the conversion facility they had. That's a very important facility that without which you can't really build a weapon. That's gone. There are other plans that we have. I won't get into it. I think Israel has shown that it has, well, how shall I say it? We're the innovation nation, we're called that, startup nation. So we have quite a few startups and quite a few rabbits up our sleeve. And I don't think that I should get into that.
Okay. Well, I mean, are you getting everything from the U.S. that you've asked for? Is there something that you've asked for that you're not getting?
What I'll say this is that I deeply appreciate President Trump's decision to help in the defense of Israel. American pilots are shooting down drones that are headed towards Israel, as do our pilots. American THAAD missile batteries are helping defend Tel Aviv and greater Tel Aviv area. American Aegis ships are in the Mediterranean. That's all a decision by President Trump, which I deeply appreciate. Again, his decisions on what to do at any given time is the president's decision. I trust his judgment completely.
Do you have any estimate on how much you have set back Iran's nuclear program?
I think we've set them back quite a bit. I think they were completely surprised. And, you know, surprise is a great element of success. Remember the Pagers? Remember Nasrallah? That's part of breaking up the Iranian axis. And we achieved that with surprise. And I think we achieved a great surprise the other day when we started. You know, we could wait and wait and wait. They'd string along the negotiations. We gave them a chance. I gave them a chance. But it was clear they were not serious about it. It became clear, I think, to the United States as well, because the president was very clear. He said, you can't have nuclear weapons. And in order not to have nuclear weapons, you can't enrich uranium. And they basically strung everybody along, and it was clear to us it was going nowhere. I could wait and wait and wait until they officially declared that the talks were off, or they, you know, and we'd officially declare that we're going to attack them. That's not how I conduct wars, and it's not how Israel conducts wars. So we're, you know, we're geared to do whatever is necessary to achieve our dual aim, to remove two existential threats, the nuclear threat and the ballistic missile threat. And we're doing that as we speak now in Tehran, but we're not bombing the population. We're telling the population, leave. So when we hit the targets embedded in civilian areas, you won't be hurt. And there's now mass migration from Tehran right now. That's what's happening. So because we're giving them forewarning.
Mr. Prime Minister, what proportion of Iranian air defenses do you think you've taken out? Back in October, the air defenses were really decimated. Now you say you have kind of control of the skies as you're picking these targets, yet these missiles and drones are still coming your way as they attack, as you point out, civilian areas inside Israel.
Well, you're right. First of all, we're doing a lot to prevent a lot of them from coming in, but it's not hermetic. You're quite right. But when I say we have control of the skies, you correctly said that they had a very dense anti-aircraft batteries between the western border of Iran and Tehran, and basically our incredible, there's no other word to describe it, our incredible intel guys and the Mossad, they did wonderful work to peel off the layers of protection that they had, and our pilots took them out. And so we have a free highway to Tehran, and we can now pick off the targets that we need in Tehran and other places without having our planes shot down. And so far, none of them have been shot down. And I hope that continues. But we are absolutely resolute to remove this threat. This is what you have to do when you stand at the brink of catastrophe. And I think it's not just our test. You know, Churchill talked about the slumber of democracies. He said that democracies tend to sleep until the jarring gong of danger wakes them up. Well, sometimes it might not wake them up. Certainly, we didn't need a wake-up gong. I've been talking about the Iranian threat for 40 years. 3 years, I think, 4 years after the Iranian regime, the Ayatollah regime, hijacked Iran and the people of Iran. I said the greatest threat facing Israel and potentially the world is this regime that will try to arm itself with nuclear weapons. And I've devoted a considerable part of my life, in fact, most of my life, to preventing that. And when the gong of danger sounds, and you know it's the last moment, it's the 12th hour, you've got to act. That's what responsible leaders do. And what I want, what I seek, is that the entire world will do what President Trump is doing. He's standing up for good against evil. He's standing up for the right against the wrong. He's standing up for good against bad. And I think that's very admirable. I salute you for it, President Trump.
The president's also, however, Mr. Prime Minister, calling for Iran to get back to the table, to the negotiating table. You don't seem to be saying that that's worth it. How does this end?
Well, in fact, I said it is worth it if they'll do what the president wants, and that is eliminate their enrichment capacity. You know, that's a lot better than my country, my forces, my brave pilots having to do it. It's much better than our Mossad operatives on the ground having to do it. But if they don't do it, and they certainly didn't want to do it, it became very clear, we had to act. We don't wait until we have a nuclear holocaust. That's not going to happen again.
So how does it end?
Well, it'll end when we remove those capacities, and we will.
You stop short of killing Iran's civilian leaders, just military commanders, I mentioned, nuclear scientists, but not the supreme leader, Khamenei. There is a Reuters report just moving saying that President Trump in the last couple of days vetoed an Israeli plan to kill Iran's supreme leader, according to 2 U.S. officials. Is that true?
Actually, there's so many false reports of conversations that never happened, and I'm not going to get into that, but I can tell you, I think that we do what we need to do. We'll do what we need to do. And I think the United States knows what is good for the United States. And I'm just not going to get it beyond that.
The Iran foreign minister today told reporters this: if Israel stops attacks on Iran, quote, our responses will stop. The attack on Iran in the midst of nuclear talks clearly demonstrates the Israeli regime's opposition to any form of negotiation. Of the canceled talks that were intended to take place today, he said Iran would have presented a counterproposal that, quote, could have opened doors for an all-out agreement with the Americans. So, again, the foreign minister saying, if you stop, they will stop. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, it's hogwash. While they were negotiating, the Ayatollah himself, Khamenei, tweeted again and again, death to Israel. Israel must be destroyed. So some good faith there, right? Aside from that, they had bad faith because they were cheating, and we saw it in our intel. It was very clear. And the U.S. had that same intel. Believe me, we shared it. We share that intelligence. One of the great things of our unprecedented cooperation that has happened under President Trump is that we share every bit of information. So number one, he's lying. That's not new. Iran lies all the time. They cheat. But the second point is that they say, okay, we'll stop if you stop. Stop what? You'll continue to develop your engines of death, mass death, continue to develop your nuclear bombs, continue to develop the ballistic missiles like the one that fell in Tel Aviv, near Tel Aviv today. I was there, the whole building just slammed through. Children sleeping in their beds, killed. Women sleeping in their beds, killed. Horrible stuff. Yeah, they'll stop and continue to develop the means for our extermination. That's not going to happen. So obviously, that's not said in good faith. The issue here is not de-escalation. The issue here is not ceasefire. The issue here is stopping those things that will threaten our survival. And we're committed to stopping them. And I think we can achieve them. Now, if they are willing to accept President Trump's terms, that's a different matter. I said that months ago. And I said, and in my meeting with the president in Washington,
Yeah, overnight.
if you can get a deal that does it, fine. But he didn't, not because the president didn't want it. It's because Iran didn't want it, and they cheated.
Overnight, you expanded your airstrikes to include oil and energy infrastructure in Iran. Is that a different phase? What's the point?
Well, this was an oil container. It wasn't a production site, but it merely means that we're ready to take whatever action is needed. And of course, we'll take some of those actions in response to what Iran does to us. But as I said, our main targets are the military and nuclear targets, and we're taking them out with the precision and with purpose.
We're not hearing much harsh criticism from from the Gulf Arab countries. There have been some statements. Saudi Arabia putting out, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia expresses its condemnation, strong denunciation of the Israeli attacks that targeted the Islamic Republic of Iran, which violated sovereignty. These attacks represent a blatant violation of international laws and norms. That was early on, but not much since then. How do you judge the Gulf states' response to what's happening now?
Well, I'll leave that to them. They can speak for themselves. But I truly believe, that we have a great future if we take out Iran. Iran has been the systematic fomenter of wars, sabotage, terrorism. They attacked Aramco, the Saudi oil facilities. They send terrorists everywhere throughout the Middle East. So I think that I have a different conception, a different future. And it was embarked on with the help of President Trump and his leadership in the Abraham Accords, where we signed peace treaties with 4 Arab states, expanding the peace, something that wasn't done for a quarter of a century. And I believe that we'll have opportunities to expand the peace as well with other of the Arab states next to us. I think they understand that Iran is a mortal threat to them as well. They have their eyes on their oil facilities. They want the waterways with the Houthis. They want to conquer the Middle East. And the one obstacle they've had so far is the state of Israel, because we're the ones fighting Iranians. And the other obstacle they have is President Trump. And I think, I'll tell you, they think that President Trump is an enormous obstacle. They think that Israel is a very big obstacle, and they're out to get us both. In fact, they tried to kill me too. They fired a missile into my bedroom window. They missed.
Wow. The Saudi Crown Prince, as you remember, in September of 23, told me he was getting closer every day to recognizing Israel and normalization. The very next day, you repeated that to me. Take a listen.
Reports that you had suspended talks.
No, that's not true.
Not true. So you think, if you were to characterize it, are you close?
Every day we get closer.
I know you heard those words from the Saudi Crown Prince. What was your response?
Well, I was delighted to hear what he had to say, and to borrow a phrase, I think we're getting closer to peace every day that passes.
Obviously, October 7th was just a few days later. Can you get back to that moment pre-October 7th?
I think what you heard was correct. One of the possible reasons for the timing of Hamas's attack, and remember, Hamas is one of Iran's terror proxies. One of the reasons that they may have brought up the attack, and not even coordinated it with others as they were supposed to do, is perhaps that they were afraid that the words of the Saudi Crown Prince and my own words were about to materialize. But they will materialize one day, I'm sure of it. And that day will be a lot sooner once we get rid of this mortal threat that Iran poses not only to Israel, but to our Arab neighbors, to Europe, to the United States, to many others.
Last thing, Mr. Prime Minister, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about the situation in Gaza. One of the reasons it's not moving forward, the normalization, is because of how that's happening. Understand that you put the onus on Hamas for everything that's happening there. But as of now, you know, we take the Gaza Health Ministry for what it is. They say the death is 55,000. The United Nations puts it at that number as well, but they're citing the Gaza Health Ministry and women and children making up half of the dead. Is there an Israeli estimate as far as the death in Gaza since the start of that operation?
Well, the ratio of civilian combatants to non-combatants is about 1-to-1, which is unheard of in such a dense urban environment. And that's happening because we're telling the population leave, and Hamas at gunpoint, and sometimes shooting them, saying stay in the war zone. That's why you have, or had, a lot of civilian casualties. That is decreased, and happily, because we're doing everything in our power to separate combatants from non-combatants. The reason this war has been going on for so long is, well, one primary reason is the hostages. They've taken hostages. Remember, this is the regime that took Americans hostage.
There's
That's how they began.
53 captives, less than half of them believed to be alive. Is that fair?
20 are alive. The rest, unfortunately, are not alive. But, you know, we started out with, we've already brought back 202 hostages, most of them alive. Some people believed in the beginning of the war, in fact, the most senior military people, they said, you will be lucky if we got one. And I said, no, I don't think so. I think that a combination of military and diplomatic pressure will get us, we can get them out. And I'm committed to getting all of them out. I've said 2 days ago, I've instructed our people to try to resume the negotiations for a ceasefire that would enable us to take Steve Witkoff, the American envoy, has made an offer to begin a 60-day ceasefire in which half of those hostages would be released right away. And I said, yes, we're ready to go. There's been some development there. I hope we are able to do that because I'm committed to getting them out. And I'm committed to getting them out and also to separate the Hamas from controlling the humanitarian aid that we're trying to give the people of Gaza, because they rob it, they steal it, and then they take a good chunk for themselves, and then they hike up the prices and give a pittance to the civilian population. So we have a plan that we devised with the help of American firms to separate the giving of the humanitarian aid to the population from Hamas control. And we're accused of starvation policies and all these other demonizations and vilifications against Israel. Look, we're a democracy fighting an island in a sea of evil, and we're doing what we can to remove this proxy, this Iran terror proxy as well. But the big problem, the big question for Israel, for humanity, for the world, for Israel and the United States is whether we can take away the weapons of mass death from this cult of death that is in Tehran. The tyrants of Tehran will not win. We, with God's help, we will win.
So just address the critics who say about Gaza that you're trying to make Gaza unlivable in order to push Palestinians out of the territory permanently. When they say that, what's the response?
Yeah. Well, because it's another lie. These are incredible lies. I think, first of all, no army in the history of the world has gone to the lengths that Israel has gone to separate combatants from non-combatants using millions of text messages, phone calls, you name it, everything, leaflets even, getting the population out. Otherwise, we'd have an enormous number of civilian deaths. And of course, Israel has that firepower, but we don't use it because that's our moral base. But the other thing is equally that we're not trying to destroy Gaza. We're trying to remove the threat from Gaza. And as far as the choice of people, if they want to leave or not, President Trump has given a brilliant idea. He said, look, Gaza has to be rebuilt. It's been destroyed because every place is booby-trapped. So, you know, the population finally leaves. They overcome the threats by Hamas to shoot them, and they just leave. They tell Hamas, leave our buildings. And they almost get shot by Hamas. But when they leave, they booby-trap everything. So when we come to fight the terrorists, they set off these charges and they kill our soldiers. What we do is we bring a supercharge. It detonates all the booby traps, and that's how you have buildings destroyed. We also go into tunnels, sometimes at great sacrifice. Our UN ambassador, Leiter, had his son, 39-year-old father of 7, killed because he went as a reserve soldier to defuse these tunnels. But we put charges there. They blow up the tunnels. The tunnels are below buildings. The buildings collapse. So there's a lot of demolition in Gaza. It has to be rebuilt. President Trump said, okay, let the people have a choice. Why are they locked in? They're not locked in other battle scenes, and the people leave by the millions in Ukraine, in Iraq, and Syria. They're left by the millions. In Gaza, they're locked in. He said, why? Give them a choice. If they want to leave to other locations, help them with a voluntary relocation. If they want to come back, they'll come back after the work of basically restructuring Gaza is complete. And I think that's a brilliant plan. I think it's all for the good. It's good for peace. It's good for Israel and the United States. I think it's good for Palestinians. They should be given a choice.
Mr. Prime Minister, very last thing. I asked you how long this may last. You said it's up to the Iranians. If you had the opportunity, and you do now, to speak directly to the Supreme Leader and to speak directly to the Iranian people, what are those 2 messages you'll say?
Well, the Iranian dictator, really, he's a dictator. He's a tyrant. He has sent us a message calling just about every day for the death of Israel, the destruction of Israel and America, but the death of Israel. So my answer to him is with action, not with words. But to the people of Iran, I say you're great people. You're people of great talent and genius. You have been usurped by this tyranny that has robbed you of hope, has robbed you of a good life. I speak to the Iranian people directly. I don't know if you know this, Brett. I do these videos. I get millions and millions of responses. And they say, Viva Israel, bravo Israel, free us from this tyranny. And I say to them, your hour of freedom is near. Rise up, be free.
Mr. Prime Minister, we appreciate your time in the middle of a very dangerous time inside Israel. We should point out you are inside Israel. We've kept your location private since it's a security situation, but we appreciate all the time you've given us. You're welcome back on Special Report anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.